Hello, 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 everyone. It's Kim from K&RP here in a drizzable Manitoba afternoon. It is currently 14 degrees Celsius, which is 58 degrees Fahrenheit. It's drizzly, it's cloudy, it's damp, but the air quality is good. Welcome, Jean. It's great to see you here. Jean's going to be taking us through some. I have to turn that thing off because it's annoying me. Okay. Jean's here. She's going to be teaching us how she does her doodles, and I'm really excited about that because she's been doodling for a long time and she's taken courses on it and she's given courses on it, and we're really fortunate. All right.
Okay. So, in case you're wondering, it's 88 degrees in Hobbs, America. Just saying.
Nice.
Not that that's anything. That's pretty warm for this time of the day. It's quarter till noon here. So, first off, this is something that I've been doing just recently. It's not, I mean, I do so much doodling that sometimes I get to the point where everything looks exactly the same. And I'm like, it's just I can't come up with any new patterns. So what I do is I use this for like that started off with some different borders, and I found these in books, and then I found some of these in books, and I just this one bled through, so I glued two pages together. It's just in a composition book. But in the back, I decided to print things that I liked. Some of these are just for inspiration or ideas.
You know
And
that dangly one? Can you go back a sec, Jean? That one, wouldn't that be really cool if you had big, colorful um, on lids or something, and that would just be bright, colorful doodles hanging on the wall or outside,
yeah,
and then use the keys as weights. But
yeah. I have something like this started in a practice prototype for hardest kits, but I
okay,
just have um I've just copied them. I've made them small so that they don't take up, you know, tons of space. Some
yeah,
of them are just ideas. I fell in love with this. I've done this a lot now. I think this is cute. I've tried a lot of them. Sometimes I go straight into my work that I'm working on and put this in there. And then other times, I do try to doodle around them in the book so that I can practice them.
mm-hmm.
There's my little monsters, but
Oh, I love the monsters.
mostly what I've been doing lately is a lot of shapes and watercolors and then and doodling on them. And I just printed a whole bunch more, well, not a whole bunch, but a few more backgrounds, fillers, things that would fill shapes, because that's where I seem to be drawing a blank right now.
All right.
Um, a lot of, let me see, I'm trying to find one of the reasons. Okay, well, this is probably my best, handiest thing. This one I have a lot of watercolor shapes. I go through and I do all the watercolor pieces first. And there's still a few on here that have, this is where I'm at right now. And so then I go in and doodle them. Well, I want something in every shape. Some of them I like, some of them, like this one, I don't like this one at all. Just, it looks like I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't. And so sometimes I just practice in this. This is actually two sheets of watercolor cut, and then it forms this, and it's done on both sides. So
Nice.
that's what. Um, After we do a little bit of doodling, I'll show you some of my little secrets that I like to do, because it does make things kind of pop, and it gives them a whole nother dimension sometimes. But first off, this is my doodle book, one of many. It's collaged on the front just because, and this was many years ago, and so I did do some uh, these are colored pencils blended. So I did add color to them. I don't hardly anymore. But yeah, so just some of it is just, ideas that fill up my space. And yes, there's a few Zentangles in there.
Yeah,
I have trouble with the word Zentangle
yeah,
because I was doing this long before Zentangle was a word.
me too. But I started doing some Zentangles. In fact, I've got a book where I've done a couple, and I've been playing. So I'm going to doodle in this book along with you while you doodle in yours.
So
I think,
anyway, this is just some of the things, and there's a lot of black and whites. I love it to do black and white and then a touch of a little bit of color. And then I have recently found these. They weren't lost. They just weren't where they should be, where I knew where they were. We got new internet, so I had to move some things, and they were on the shelf that I had to move.
oh, I love that. Go back, go back. I need a better look. The circles. Next, the circle page. You've got some color and circles. That one. Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, I love circles.
Me too. Sorry.
Okay, I'm not. I'm just kind of flipping it, you know. And some of I like words. This has always been my motto: draw your own lines.
I love
That was
that one
all
too.
flutterbys, and that's how I spelled it, flutterbys.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's not. It's a little doodle and a little coloring. So my granddaughter loves them. She loves to color them after I'm done.
Yeah.
So, of course, I had to do some funky letters
I love those.
and my
Oh,
page.
paisley. I love paisley. I tried collaging paisley the other day.
Hmm.
Just random shape. I love that. The freeform shape. I love the fact that you do all those different borders. I love borders for some reason. I don't know why.
This
But
shape of a border, I have done this since I was in ninth grade. And I hadn't done it for a very long time. And pulling this book back out reminded me of it.
I love
So,
that.
anyway, that's just to give you an idea of some of the things that I do or have done over time.
All right.
And I think this one is the oldest one. My daughter has, or granddaughter has pulled out pages that she's wanted. So I don't know even know what's left in here. Oh, it's not, well, it's at least 15 years old because I did this when Riley was born because everything in his hospital room said rock star on it.
Nice.
And so, and as you see, there's always room to do more.
There is. Well, that's what they say. It's never finished. It's just abandoned, right?
Yeah, this one, I'm not sure if this is a laurel birch, but I fell in love with it. So I tried it. I've never done it again, but
I love those cats.
yeah. So just, anything goes.
All right.
So is there anybody in here?
No, it's weird, eh?
Yeah. Did you
Oh,
make
it's
it
good.
public?
Pardon?
Did you make it public?
I believe I did. Well, I've got my YouTube running on the side.
That's okay. Then come back and watch it.
Yeah.
So, first off, the thing I was going to do was, and I'm going to use a big pen. I don't like to doodle with a big pen. I like to doodle with a fine point. In fact, I was telling Kim before we started, and I'll show this. This is called a platinum carbon black.
Oh, hi,
Hi,
Karen.
Karen.
Thanks for
This
lurking.
This is my very, 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 very favorite pen. So favorite that I have two. And I
Hi,
take
Teresa.
over. Oh, Teresa's not here.
No,
It's a fountain pen and it's super, super fine point, and I love it. It gets me teeny fine lines and yet it draws. And it's not like, a calligraphy pen where you got to do certain strokes. That's my favorite. Kim should have the links in the description at some point.
I will. I'll have the
So,
American one and I'll have the Canadian one because the price differences are crazy.
yeah. So the first thing, whenever I've taught doodling, I start off with draw some squares on your paper.
I'm using a blue paper. Remember, we had this discussion. I'm using it up. Okay,
Yep.
squares, portrait or landscape, or you don't care.
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
So most doodles are dots, which you can't hardly see that, or circles. And there's so many variations of dots and circles. You can have a circle inside of a circle with a dot in the middle. You can have a big circle and you can come down like this until you get. Uh, when I do that normally, I got to put a curve in it because then it looks more whimsical. And then, of course, your dots is, you can have them as random as you want. A little tip on that is when I'm doing dots, I like to be heavy in one area. I don't even care if they overlap. And then you kind of bring them out a little bit further. And as you go out, you space them more. And it gives you the illusion of shadows.
good afternoon, Teresa and
Hello,
Karen.
Karen. Hello,
Okay,
Tree.
okay. So, do you want me to make you big so
I
that we
don't
can see
care.
that a little bit better? I think I'd
Okay.
like to make you big for now,
Okay.
and then when we've done that, I can come back and show what I have copied.
So, our first square is going to be circles, and you can fill it with circles. You can do little bits of it. You can do a whole row of circles. We want to concentrate on circles. So I've done this where I'm kind of shadowing it, and up here I'm just going to do. I love to make things go off the page. That's what makes them look like professional, I guess. I don't know why I say professional, but it looks like you've had this big square of something and then you cut it out. And so when they go off the page, it just has a smoother concept.
I
And
like
so
that.
I'm gonna just do that. Oh, I like that. You're doing it and you think, okay, I like that. So I'm gonna make that a pattern
Oh, I
and
already
do
put a whack load of circles in my square.
so, and then oh, I really like that. So let's do it this way. And And there you've got a whole new pattern. And what did you draw? Circles. Not full circles, but it doesn't matter. It's still a circle. So that's really cool. So I'm going to take from this one and make a big circle. And I hardly make any size difference, just barely. And it becomes a visual size difference. So there I did my dots coming out of there. And I'm still sticking with circles. I'm not going to make any lines. It's just going to be circles. So let's do down here. Let's put this border around this page of just circles, or just do three. I like to do things in odd amounts. I think that's kind of a given for most artists. They want to do things in threes or fives. I like three. Five
I
is
do both.
weird, but I like three. So there we go. Okay, it's still not full. Let's do another one of these. And look, it just became even more whimsical. It's this, burst of something over here popping out all these things. What else could we do? We're doing just circles and dots.
Mine
Um,
does not look like yours. Because I wasn't watching you, I was just doing my thing.
so I'm just going to do some circles. And, again, I'm taking them off the page. Let's do one right there.
I'm a bad pupil, Jean. I'm a bad pupil.
So that's just circles. Another favorite of mine with circles is to just do, especially when I'm filling a space, I'll just do random big circles. I'm not worrying right now about whether or not I've got them filled in solidly. I do on my finished pieces or my doodles that are in a book. Again, off the side. So I'm going to cut this in half because this is where I'm going to stop because I got another little technique. So of course we can have this polka dotted shape. That's cute. That's really, really cute. Well, I want to kick it up a notch and I'm going to add lines. I can't do lines with this pen. It's going to not show what I want it to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fine point pen and I'm just going to draw lines. Now, if you're picky and you want to go skip over your black dots, that's fine. I don't worry whether the lines are even with each other if I do this. I just do it. But I can also just do this because they're all black. And if I put too big of spaces in and I'm using a fine point pen, I can go back in and add another line and that just gives it more texture. So that's a good fill spot. But again, with circles, this is another one of my favorites. Is I can't use this one again. This is too big to go down a little bit here. So I'm going to take and I'm going to draw. This pin's almost dead. Some touching circles, all different sizes. No specifics, just circles. Again, going off the page.
So it's like bubbles.
Right. Okay, that's pretty cool by itself. Let's kick it up a notch. Is I'm going to go in all the spaces that don't have bubbles or circles is going to get filled in. My pen, like I said, is on its last legs. I can also round out if I've made a sloppy circle, I can fix that by coloring it in. When I color things in, I may draw with this one or another fine one, but I always fill it in with something thicker because it's just there's no sense in being hard on the fine points when that's what the thick points are for. And it's okay if you make a mistake. I just did and didn't bring it to your attention, but sometimes when you're drawing, you'll start your pen in the wrong place and you've got this little thing. Well, just make that little bump out a little bit more prominent because to me, when it comes to doodling, what makes it cool is the dark and light of it. I love to have some more solid black to ground everything. So that's two different ways of doing circles. And then we have the circles and the dots. Yes, I use lines in there because that's another common thing for doodling is lines. I mean, really, honestly, everything is a line. Even the circles are a line, sort of. There you go.
So I put a few dots in, but on the first one, I
Yeah.
didn't. I got carried away before I was actually watching what you were doing.
That's okay. It's for you to practice. I just am bringing up the concept that we have dots, circles, and that's. So now I'm going to go into lines. I'll go back to the heavy pen. So we have, of course, we have a straight line. You put several of those together, taper it down,
Yeah,
and you got a new pattern. You can take the line, and even if you do, you could do zigzag because it's still a line, and you can do a wavy line because why? It's still a line. And then you can combine. This is kind of a line, kind of not. But let's say you've done this and you just need to keep adding to it. And that's where, in my opinion, doodling comes, is keep adding to it. So let's make another line of dots. So see, you can just add so much to lines. Even this is a line,
I like those kinds of lines.
and this is a line. One of my newest favorite things that I've been doing, and I do it with a fine pen, but I'm going to do it in this, is I like to make spirals that are kind of square. And I mean kind of because they just have some rounded spots too. And if you notice that I went in and did a second line, I took a class, and that was one of the most prominent things that I learned in that class was the first line is not the last line. And I've started doing more squarish, roundish kind of these. And I even, they even come off of each other. And then I go back over them, and I definitely purposely make sure some of the lines that you can see, because that's where you get to take your pen. Now I'm jumping ahead here. This is just kind of one of my tips I was going to share, but I'm going to show it anyway because it's here. But just go in with your pen and make that black and white like it's striped. And then you can leave that open, the little bits that are open where you see two lines, or you can go back in and you can fill them. That's another one of my favorite things is thick and thin. So I like to have
Hey, Sherry,
light,
welcome.
and I like to have dark, and I like to have thick, and I like to have thin. That's, to me, what pulls everything together and lets you, I don't know, I don't really cross my eyes when I look at my doodles, but I know I'm not looking at them normally. I just kind of look at them and see what else they need. And it just comes to me. I don't know how to explain that, but I always keep these in mind because I can do a doodle and have the whole page finished. And I'm like, there's no weight on this page. It needs something dark and heavier. And so that's kind of where all of that comes from. So let's take and fill a box or two with just lines. Any lines you want. I think I'm going to start off with a wavy line. I'm going to go ahead and put a border on this one. And so it's kind of wicked and wild. And then I like to take a fine point because I'm still doing lines, right? And I love filling spaces in with just lines. There's something about that that's mesmerizing and calming. Even when I screw up, it's still, I never let it get to me. I never do. I have been using Posca pens and I push down too hard and it inks out in a splat, which I don't have my Poscas out right now, but let's say this is a splat of ink. I push too hard, ink paint something, and I've got this big splat on there. So how do you fix that? Well, let's take a finer point and let's just kind of drag it out like this. If there's a lot in there, I tend to blow it so it goes, organically where it wants to. But just, you know, make it work. Make it be part of the design element. If it's splattered, again, you can just do that. See how it's starting to become a shape now? You don't, maybe that's too conformed. Just make some squiggly lines. Always, this is something else I do. I don't know if you can, how well you can see that. Um, is I like to round off the corners and make it look like it's coming out of it. And you can run a second line. That's fine too. That gives more whimsy. So that's one way you could fix a splat. Doodle doesn't have to have a rhyme or reason. It's just a doodle. It's just for fun. But this was the ink that I perhaps had spilled. So that's a good way to fix it. Okay, back to this. I got sidetracked. A lot of times when I do a collage, I doodle on my collages. And if you have outlined something and you mess up, let's say I have this shape right here. I drew over it twice. Never mind. So I have this shape right here. I got this little point on it. I don't like that. And I didn't outline it because the inside, it's not quite right. It's not outlining it right. So here's how we can fix that. We're going to round that little shape off and we're going to fill it in. And it just looks like it was supposed to be there. Again, you got the thick and thin. Okay, you only have one. That's kind of weird. So just go in and put one somewhere else. Couple other little thick spots. Don't worry whether they're perfect or not. And if you can see really well where I just did this, my line kind of went out, so it shaped it a little different there. So we're just going to, make another line and kind of fill that in until it looks right. And then run your second line around because I'm going around 3 or 4 times. The first line is not the last line. This is what gives it some whimsy. This is what gives it some character. If you take a circle, you got 2 circles. They look similar. This one's got a little boo-boo. Okay, let's make another line around this one. No, I did several. See how much more fun this one is? This one's just a circle. So, okay, back to the lines. I'm sorry, I really get distracted when I'm doodling because, I just come up, see something, and I gotta explain this, gotta explain that. But I do definitely love filling in spaces with lines. I also like to fill in spaces with polka dots, even though this was supposed to be lines. So I'm showing you that there is no rules.
There's no rules. I like no rules.
So we're sticking with the lines. Let's fill in this little space right here. And there's one over here, so let's One more little tip, and I do tell myself this every time I doodle. When you are working with something and you've got a lot of detail out, try to draw so that you can see where you're going, not where you've been. Because sometimes when you're drawing, you can draw and you're going around this way, and now I can't see my pen tip. Now I could hold my pen different, but I may not have the same control. But if I always draw where I can see where my pen's going, I have way better control because I do watch the nib when I draw, the tip of the pen. I don't pay attention to anything else. But if my hand kind of gets in the way, because sometimes we hold our pens a certain way that's comfortable, we don't even think about it. It's our pens. We're doing what we love. Who thinks about how you're holding it, right?
I turn the page.
I do turn the page, but I always do try to draw where my hand
That
is.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're drawing this way, you still see where you're going, but you don't see the driving part of where you're going. You
Yeah,
wouldn't go blind without being able to see the front of your car, or so
exactly.
and I think I'm going to take this down here and do another funky line of something that's hanging off of it, because hangy downies are always fun.
They are.
And I do use these terminology that is so professional. Hangy downies, it's they're very important words.
They are.
When you're striping something, you can always go back in and fill in your stripes so it's really thick stripes. That's probably my favorite when it comes to stripes, because it does what I like to have in my doodles, is a grounding, solid space, and that's what I feel like a thickness does. So just do some swerving lines. And there's nothing wrong saying you can't take um, a piece of paper and just start making a line.
I love doing that kind of doodling.
And now look at all these spaces you have to do with different little things. Like I always like to take where they meet in the corners and fill those little tiny spots. I'm not going to try to put something in there. I like to fill them in because why? The light, the dark, the thick, the thin, the heavy. I like that. So I have some places where it doesn't touch right here, so it makes one great big spot. And so I'm just going to kind of thicken that line so they touch and it becomes another spot. And I
That
do
would be
that.
gorgeous on a book page.
Yeah, that's what this paper that I this one right here. I took a book page, the guts of a book, and I just did things like this and things like this, and even did some like this and overlapped and just drew lines all over the book. I probably did 30 pages. The problem is I used a Sharpie and I had a terrible headache by the time I was done. But I wanted bold lines because then you can tear that out and you got a background piece. You can tear it in strips and you got collage pieces. It just has so many functions. And so, that's to me, that's when you need to do something, but you don't feel like doing anything. You can just sit and do that. And it's kind of fun to do it and not watch and see what comes out of it. Because what are you wasting? A piece of paper out of a book that you weren't going to keep anyway. But when you got something like this, you can go in and do whatever little doodles you may want to do inside of each little shape. So maybe I want to do this one that has some skinny stripes. Another fun thing with lines, and I'll try to do it in a little bit bigger area that I like to do in it, is I'll draw, I'll kind of like make it look like I've skipped, like the pen is leaked or skipped, you know.
Almost like a stitch, like if you're doing stitching, right?
Yep. And that's something else. If you don't know what to doodle and you got a sewing machine, pull out your sewing machine, copy some of your stitches. I usually go just one direction when I'm doing any kind of lining, but sometimes I find myself going back and forth. Not often, but once in a while, and it happens without thinking. So that's a whole new texture. It looks filled in, but it looks like, wow, that pen skipped a line, you know. So basically, doodles are dots and circles and lines. I kind of lump dots and circles together because they are kind of the same thing. But the thing is if you know, again, like I said, I have that doodle diary for anybody who came in late where I just keep ideas and things I've practiced. And, you know, I just use them where I think they may need be. And then I print things off, things I like, and I glue them in the back. So I've got this inspiration if I'm at a spot where I don't know what I want to do. And I love borders like these where you can link things together because you have to think a little bit, you know? Like this one right here, it kind of looks like a string going through a bunch of donuts, but yet it kind of looks like a stack of mushrooms.
It does
And
look like a stack of mushrooms.
so you got to kind of think about it. Um, I usually do like
A skip
that.
line, a sparkle. I like that. Sorry, I was just reading the chat. Teresa said that skip line is called a sparkle in Zentangle.
Oh, but you got to think about where you're putting your patterns, you know, because you got to do the front and the back. And I like that. I like that a lot. I think it's a fun thing to do. Something I've done for a long, long time, and I honestly I can't do it without a pencil. I don't know why, but I just can't do it without a pencil. Is I will draw like a pole, and then I will wrap a ribbon around it. And I'm using a very light touch. Then I will take that ribbon and make it dimensional. So it looks like a flat ribbon that's walked around. Okay. Then I stop and think. And I take my eraser. And okay, so I think I want this one to be under. So I'm going to erase this. So this one's going to be over. And this one's going to be under. This one's over. This one's under. This one's over. This one's under. Over and under. So I'll have to make my pole a little bit longer. So that works out good. Now you've got to go in and you need to erase the lines of the pole on the overs. And I have tried doing this with pen and I mess it up every time. So I always do it in pencil real light. And then I can go in with my pen and it looks like the ribbon is wrapping right around that pole. And I don't worry whether or not I'm exactly on the right lines.
That's a cool one. Of course, I did it in pen.
I don't know why, for some reason, doing it in pen just is really difficult for me.
It is difficult.
And then you do your pull. And then you've got this um, design to fill in. You can make your ribbon polka dotted. Of course,
Yeah,
after it's dried and set for a little bit, because I don't want to go right in and smear. I'll go in and I'll erase the lines because I didn't follow them perfectly.
right.
And if you draw softly, um, the
I don't
lines
know how to
erase.
draw softly. I detest using pencil. I don't like the way it scritches on paper. It just gives me the willies. Yet I
Uh,
can use a scratch pen and it still has a scritch, but it doesn't bother me the way a pencil does. I wonder if it's just the texture on the paper. I have no idea. But
yeah,
it just really makes my teeth itch almost. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so I
yeah. I was. It
figured
looked
I would
like a
try.
dollar sign because I didn't get the right curls on it. But yep. But I'm doing it for the concept of the technique. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be, you know.
No, no, I get it. I mean, I should learn how to use a pencil. I really should just suck it up and use a darn pencil. I can use colored pencils. I just have a weird thing about like HB or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's. I don't know. A mechanical pencil, I don't hear it. But I'm kind of deaf, so it's all right.
But it's more the texture on my hand. You know what I mean? Like I've got mechanical pencils too, but just the pencil lead on the paper has a totally different feel than the flow of a pen, like the ink,
Right,
right?
right.
And for some reason, like I said, it just really gives me the willies. It's crazy.
So that's my basic, concept. Um, there's so much more to it. A lot of it is kind of like closing your eyes or squinting your eyes and seeing what you do. I love to take a shape and just fill it in, hit and miss, no rhyme, no reason. I mean, it's a butterfly, and a butterfly is supposed to be the same on, but it's not, and I still love it. So,
Yeah.
um, I want to go over this one more time. On the one line is never the last. The first line is not the last line,
Right.
and
Yep.
I'm going to use these. Actually, these were gifted to me. The pigment pins were in with a bunch of Zentangle stuff. These are scratchy for pins. I don't really care for them. So I'm going to use the micron. My 8's almost dead. So I'm going to go ahead and go with a 10, even though I don't, I use 10s and 12s for coloring in. I don't really like to draw with them. But let's draw a flower. just your basic flower, nothing fancy. So it's usable. It's a flower, right? Well, this
Mm.
one's a little bigger than these others, these two. So let's fix that. Let's just do our second line to make these look a little bigger. And this one needs just a little bit more too. Okay, now that, see how the difference in these petals look? To me, this is more fun. This is more fun. I don't know how else to describe it, but I do need to fix these so they look like they're all the same. Oh, and then this, and I'm gonna draw a few more lines. That's okay. That's pretty good. But you can still go in with another line. I just can't help it. I have to go to a thinner pen. So I'm just going to draw another one. I'm not going to worry about it. Just a couple more to give it that scratchy, sketchy look. And my pen's doing its thing here. So I'm going to bring it over here.
I made a really big mess. Oh, an aura. That's a good name. I like it when you're not here, Teresa. I love it when you interact from the nethers, from the cyber world. I do
So
enjoy
now,
you being here. I love
you
your
know,
input. I made big mess. I keep going the wrong way.
I do too. But it still looks good. Now, if you color that in, that's going to be really cool. So I don't know that I would want to color it in because I do most of my doodles in black and white. But, let's give this some whimsy, okay? So I'm going to kick it up a notch. I keep referring to that, and I'm
I
not
would
even
love.
an emerald fan, but so I am going to thicken some of these little spaces out so it's got more dimension, but I'm also going to add some lines.
Teresa, I would love to see your Zentangles. I need something in between. What are you? Let's see if you can work for me. I really would love to see some of your Zentangles.
But that, like I said, that's not something I will call them because I was doing it well before Zentangle was a word, and it's always been a doodle to me,
Yeah,
so it's always going to be a doodle.
me too, Jean. Me too.
I sometimes people take a word and or an idea or something and change it to a whole, like
Like who?
thongs.
Yeah,
Thongs are flip flops that you wear on your feet.
they are.
I mean, I've come to terms with that one, and I know it's different now. But at first, it was like, come on, people, leave a word for what it is. So
Yeah,
anyway, I'll just do some thick and thin lines. Just it just adds to the whimsy, and so I mean, it's just a way to kick it up, make it a little more fun. And when you make a flower, a lot of times you do those lines in the center. So let's take those lines and let's change them a little bit. I'm going to put a few squiggly lines because I'm not always a straight kind of drawer. And the reason is because a squiggly line has so much more room for mistakes. Doesn't
and they're
have
friendlier.
what?
They're friendlier.
Yes. Yes, I like that, Teresa. Zen doodles. because when I'm doing this, I really am in another world.
Me too. Me too.
And I'm going to put a dot at the end of all those. And these poor two petals right here always tend to be left out, but I'm trying to show you what that little bit of what a difference that'll make, just to frou-frou it up. Because you can add leaves and all that other stuff if you want. But what I'm going to do is my little um, swirly thingies where they're kind of square. And again, I'm not necessarily following the line because I want you to see more than one line. And let's take this one off of here. I just started doing this a couple weeks ago. I don't know where it came from. I just thought I liked it. I know it's crazy that does that. The way it is. I don't know. It just does something, and that's what the stripes do. It adds a little more weight, adds the thick and thin, the light, the dark. Now, before I started doing these, it was nothing for me to do this.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, I still did it as a second line. It was actually Joanne Sharp who told me that. I mean, she didn't personally tell me. That's the line she used in her class. In fact, the sketchbook I was working in, I wrote that down because it just was like, whoa, whoa, an aha moment.
I love aha moments.
And so you can still do something like this and add your vine and leaves if you want. But then there's something so whimsical about
I
this.
like those square whimsy ones.
Yeah. And
This, I have to show you. This is the way I always used to doodle.
yeah.
I spent days, years, months doing black and white checkerboard doodles.
Uh-huh. When I doodle, I do use checkerboards. And when I'm doing a full page of something,
Yeah,
I'll add some checkerboards in there. See, there's checkerboard
yeah,
because that gives me my weight right then and there.
it does.
There's a little checkerboard. And I love to do my checkerboards crooked or with wavy lines.
Yeah, a lot of times what I do was I would put a circle down, like I draw circles on the page, and then do checkerboards around it, and still do the checkerboard inside the circle, but you could see them really pop because they would be, yeah, you know. Teresa, I love your doodles.
Hi, Jean. So
Hey, Jean, welcome.
I just, these are just little things that I do that, and another thing, um, when I've started working on this, not a big fan of a lot of white space. I like things to be full. So I have found myself doing little single things. Like, I don't know if you can see that. It's just to fill in. So, like, I wanted to put berries on these branches sticking out. Why? Because it's my stuff and I can, right?
Yeah.
So let's do a little berry here and a little berry here. Okay, that's cool. Second line, just a little bit cooler. Let's just make it a little bit cooler. Let's put lines through. Now they're just so different. And there's so many things that you can do with your doodles to make them personal for you. And that's what I like. And sometimes, you were talking about the checkers. A lot of times when I do, I love to do grids. I love to draw lines. With this pen I've gotten, and it's got some fuzz in it. Um, I love to do lines because I can almost always draw a straight line with this. Maybe not really long, but long enough. So then let's do this. And I'm not in the mood to color this in today. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a fatter pen so I don't have to scratchy scratch. And I'm going to put a dot at every intersection. That gives you still kind of a checker, but you got a whole nother pattern there. So
Yeah.
kind of like the saying, the first line is not the last line. The first idea is not the only idea or the last idea. I wanted to put berries on there. Okay, drew two circles. Those can be berries. Well, I drew the line again. Oh, now they're cooler berries. And now they have these lines through them. And so they're abstract berries. You know, it's kind of like whatever you want it to do, you can get it to do. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing or what you think everybody else is doing. Do what you want, add to it. Like even this has got so much more weight than this does. These don't really have the weight, but they still seem to blend in real well more than this does. And a lot of it's the style. This is more, um, for lack of a better word, more choppy because I don't go for square, but I go for corners, and this is real swirly. So let's see if we can't make this blend in a little better. This little that's good. I got to put that way out of the way. It's just too close to dead, really too close to dead.
Teresa, we'll have to figure out why you can't get them into the Facebook group. That's really silly. I don't understand why either.
So I put a little bit of um, you know, the stripedness in there and added a little extra weight in some of the lines. I may always draw with my fine um, tip pins, but I tend to still go over them with the heavy. I probably double my work more than I should, but
But that's
you
what
know,
gives you enjoyment out of it, right? Like,
right. And it's there's a look I'm going for. And if
yeah,
that's what it takes to get the look I want, then that's what I'm going to do. And
right.
I don't always make the thick stripes. I try to do a mixture,
Yeah,
and that way um, I don't know, they get some balance, I guess. I don't know. I have had no formal training, although I have done this. Um, I had an uncle that was hurt in a car accident when I was in ninth grade. He was paralyzed from the waist down. Over time, his hands became pretty useless also, but he doodled and he taught me so many things. And I just recently we started going through some of my mom's things, and she had a bunch of his sketchbooks, and there was things in there. He it wasn't just me. He worked with all of his nieces and nephews that were interested, and there was pages in there each one of us had done, and it was like, you know, it's like I said, it's just something I've done for like ever, and it's you gotta, you know, you kind of have a style, you kind of have a thing you want to do that's just how you do it. And I don't mean that you can't, you know, when I show somebody what I do, I'm not expecting them to do it just like me. I want them to, you know, try it and see what they like, you know, because there's one technique everybody has that somebody else wants to learn. And I think
yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah, exactly. Teresa, they are in the group. Thank you. I really, really like them. I like when people post things in my Facebook group because I like the fact that they're willing to help inspire other people. So, you know, I thank you for putting them in there. I really appreciate it.
So I just added some thick and thin to this, and it's really tying it together enough that I'm going to go ahead and fix these two lonely petals that didn't get any detail hardly, because I wanted to just kind of give you an idea of how the extra lines work and happen to, make everything blend, pop, be beautiful, all of the above.
All of the above. I love all of the above. Hey, Joni, welcome, welcome. Oh no, I really appreciate you posting, Teresa. I love it. Those ladies you were doing
You.
turned out gorgeous too. I'm glad you posted those as well. Yeah, Jean's just showing us some different ways that she doodles, Joni, and giving us some tips and tricks. And I'm appreciating it because I don't know about you, but sometimes you get really tired of your own doodles. And it's nice to see other people and explain how they do them so that um, you can try it and adapt it to the way you do it. Yeah, wouldn't that be lovely on the front of a card? Jeans is incredible.
It'd have to be a 5x7 card. So it needs some more of these because just, it just does. That's all I
It
can
just
say.
does.
Oh, then I forgot my dots on my little lines over here. And I could still add to them. I could go in and just add some dots at the bottom to make that kind of look a little darker. I could also shade it with a pencil like you do for Zentangles. But I'm kind of like you, Kim. I don't use a pencil a lot. My grandkids, when they come over, they'll want to draw and they grab a pencil. And I'm, you know, not the oldest. He has, um, oh, drawn with me for so long that he just automatically picks up a pen. In fact, for many years, he'd come in and say, "Well, which pens are mine, Grandma?"
Yeah,
They don't get to use my real good ones. I mean, at first, but once they do, I share. Except these,
yeah,
share these.
yeah. I'm getting fussier with what I share with the grandkids. They're not as gentle. My
Yeah,
granddaughter is, but she's home later today, but she's been in Europe for a few months, couple of months. But the boys, they're not as into this, so they have a tendency to be a little bit more heavy-handed, which is okay. I've got stuff that they can use. Yes, Joni, Pinterest is a great place to get new ideas. It really is.
what do you mean grid journal, Teresa? Where I did um, in this book? Is that
Grid
what?
journaling is when you put things down on a page in boxes, Jean.
Oh, yeah, I do like to do that with my watercolor stuff. When I watercolor and then doodle on top of it. Actually, I signed up for the ATC swap it was a big step. I don't swap often because I don't always have a lot of time. And I gridded this off. There's my first two ATCs. So we'll hope they work.
They'll work.
If they won't, I'll just keep going until they do.
They'll work.
I think this pen is about ready to have its cartridge changed. But I don't mind the scratchiness of the lines. The worst part about the worst part is I can't visually tell whether the whether this is empty all the time. Sometimes I can, but most of the time I can't. And then the second worst thing is that the lid doesn't go on the back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I always am look, where's my lid? Where's my lid?
I do that with that big marker. It does go on the back, though. I just don't always do it. And then I end up putting my glue lid on my marker and mucking up the tip. And you know how that works.
Yeah.
Joni has been doing 100-day challenge.
Fun.
I like to go to the edge too, Joni, but I really like things with frames. Jean was showing her book that she's been doodling in, and she's got some incredible page edges because she doodles them, right? And they're absolutely stunning. I would love to be able to do that instead of just taking a wobble cut piece of paper and gluing it down. I would like to be able to. Whoops! What did I throw on the floor now?
In most of my books, I have went clear to the edge or over the edge because that's what I learned. That's how I learned. But when I do the watercolor kind, um, where I'm uh, doodling on watercolor pages, which I know there's one in here. I saw it earlier. Or maybe I took it out.
You don't batch make any ATCs, Joni, the way I do. Like I'll do 4 at a time or 3 at a time. Whoa. You know, my screen's backwards. It's getting there, slow but sure.
This is what I'm loving the most right now is to tape it up
Oh,
and
I
then
like that.
and when the tape's on there, I paint over the whole thing. Now I've had some that they leaked, maybe they leaked out or something.
Yeah,
I didn't like it, so I cut them down. And they're so cool with the little white frame around them.
yeah.
But yeah,
I like those.
I really enjoy doing these a lot.
See, I don't do watercolor.
Um, I don't. I used to say that the best thing I could do with watercolor, the one thing I was really good at, was making holes in pages. But now I don't hesitate to play with watercolor. In fact, my fingers look nasty because I just set up a new watercolor palette. Hobby Lobby had a ton of um, watercolor tubes on sale, clearance.
Yeah.
I think I bought 30 and it was like just over $40. So I just set me up a new palette and I made a mess.
Well, in my infinite wisdom, I figured, well, I don't use watercolors, and somebody had given me a really lovely set for Christmas. And then my daughters were taking a watercolor class together, so I gave them to my kids. And now it's like, well, now I want them, but they're using them. So I just threw a little bit of random color on there just for something different.
I know, Kim, you asked me one time about alphabet.
That, yeah.
You can take the concept of your doodles and make your an alphabet out of it without any, like, okay, like these.
I love those.
I kind of like this, so I'm not going to do it on this page because I may save that for something. I keep having things falling
Me
everywhere.
too. It's like, what fell now? And I was cleaning before I started the stream today while tidying.
So we'll do the eye because it's easy. So all I did was draw my. Well, this is just keeps picking. This must not be the best paper for this pen.
Oh, it picks up a fuzz, right?
Yeah. So
Oh,
all I
you've gone
did
blurry, hun.
too much white. It's weird how it does that because I do not have the autofocus on.
I don't know if I've got autofocus on or not, but mine has been doing that off and on lately too.
So I just start off with this is for my eye, and I'm gonna do. As you know, these were a long, long time ago, so I would hope I could do better than this even. Oh, so I'm just gonna do a little spiral. Yeah, this paper is not really too good for this pen. So I guess we'll be doing thicker letters because I don't have any other thin pens out. I have a 0.3. Let's see how this works. Let's see, I don't like that I came down on that. But, you just do whatever feels good. And then go back in and do some extra lines and connect things where they didn't connect.
Can you move over to the left just a smidge, please, Jean? Thank you. See, your freestyle with the open second line is what I really, really struggle with. It has to be filled into me. You know what I mean? Like if I'm circling something, I come back and I do a second circle, it has to be filled in. It can't be that second. I really try hard to get that second scribbly line on there. It just I get it's it's dirty to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
for
need.
you, I suppose, but I don't see it. I mean, it's not dirty to me, it's whimsical.
Yeah, I get that, but I have a hard time. And I love whimsy, but why do I have to have things outlined precisely? Like I am so random with what I perceive as, you know.
Yeah.
I think I just have to start making stuff and do scribbles around the outside of it and just put the pen down and leave it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'm not really a perfectionist, though, Teresa. Look at all my wobble cuts. Look at my doodles. Look at the critters I create.
It's a wobble draw. That's what you need to call it.
I need to do a wobble draw. Need to do a wobble draw. Like, I love the look of it on other people's stuff, but when I'm doing it, to me, it just looks off. Is it because I spent so much time doodling like this? Everything's in the lines, everything is precise, everything is exact,
Probably.
you know? That I have to color outside the lines and just suck it up. See, like when you're doing that K there, all those lines, those extra lines, I would
Hmm.
fill them in. And then I would fill all the other lines to make them the same thickness.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I like it. I love it. But I have a really hard time doing it.
It's kind of like when I draw, or not draw, make jewelry. I cannot make a pattern in a jewelry when I'm, stringing beads or something.
Yeah.
Um, I just can't do it. I did one time make me one. Shirt was turquoise and lime green stripes, and it was like, okay. And the only beads I found was a small turquoise color and a larger green. You get two beads like that. It's big bead, little bead. It's really hard not to do a pattern
Yeah.
with two beads. I wore that thing one time and had to go and cut it apart, and find some other beads to stick in it, and make it, you know, better, because I just can do it. I can do it.
Yeah. You always do a pattern when you bead, Joni? I don't. I do bits of patterns when I bead, but I much prefer to do this style. I really need to do some beading.
I have, when my friend was alive and I worked at the bead store, we did a class, an all day class on different kinds of, um, oh gosh, Kim, that's pretty.
It's going to be a heart when it's done.
Really pretty.
Thank you.
Um, a class on designing your jewelry, and she did color and all that, because I've had many people tell me that my sense of color is great. I can't teach it because I don't know. I It's just something I do. It's
Yeah.
just, it comes to me and I can't teach it. But I did the designing part, and the balance and the weight and all that, explained all that. And I come up with a really cool technique for people who need to use a pattern, because we had three people that were real regulars, and I could get one to get a little off on a pattern, but I had one that just absolutely couldn't do it without a pattern. Just
Yeah.
didn't make a necklace that's not patterned. And I tried this technique with her, and it worked, and she liked it. She didn't really do it again. She kept to her pattern, but she tried.
Yeah. I like pattern. Oh, thanks, Joni. I like patterns. I have to admit, I do like patterns. But, I like this style.
Yeah, that makes me want to get out. I have two different bracelets started on suede.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done it for so long.
So, I mean, there's pattern. What am I doing with all these things? But then you always get that one random bead that's just a little big, but that's okay. Oh, 3131, etc. Yeah. I have to find a use for those hearts, guys.
So there we go. I just did your name.
Oh, thank you. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So, anybody have any questions or how do I do this? This is so me. This quote is so me. Organized people are just too lazy to look for it.
That's very true. They would, Teresa. Not sure that I'm up to doing a fabric journal. I could, but that's just not where my passion is at the moment. Like, I don't mind doing the hearts and then putting them in the bin. I thought maybe of doing them on the side of boho type purses. So I just love boho purses. I want to make some. I've got some in my head that need to come out, but I need to get my sewing machines fixed. I've been saying that for how many years now? I've got 3 sewing machines, and not a single one of them is working right now. Um, but yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm so contradictory, eh? But I do like the way this doodle flower is turning out, Jean. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's coming along.
And you left your lines more than you didn't close them.
I know. And I'm doodling in the spaces. That will come with time. It will come with time. My fixation on doodles lately have been, I like to have various things to stick in pockets and tucks in journals, right? So I've done a whack load of just like little scribble doodle things
Uh huh.
just on corners of papers so that I can just tuck it in. But I do like the way that you do the double line and just leave it. A pocket
What
bag would be cool.
maybe to help you with that is don't do a big project. Do like you've got that one flower there.
Yeah,
Do one of them that way. And then if you want to do more and you want to fill them in, go for it. But always
yeah,
try, you know, a
yeah,
small project. I think, I mean, I don't mind filling them in, but if I fill them in, they're still going to be thick and thin
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm not very good at consistently uniform. I don't know
no,
why, but I am not.
no, I'm not either. That's why I don't understand my thing for having to make sure that it's ticky boo, right? Pocket bag would be cute. Oh, almost like, was it Dee Dee doing those prayer bags for people out of the sorry silk things? Somebody was doing, not that I would do prayer bags, I would do medicine bags because of my background. But yeah, something like that could be cute. I love the way those circles, those green circles under your thumb. I'm pointing. Can you see? I'm pointing at your thumb. Those
Yes,
green circles. I love those.
I like them too, and it's really nothing on there. It's three lines this way, and it's offset.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Sometimes the ideas come really good, and sometimes I struggle with them.
Yeah.
And some of these big spaces, I have. like these lines don't have anything in them, and I'm not sure. I think I want something, but I'm just sometimes I'm just not there. Sometimes a little bit of something is good, and sometimes it needs tons more.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's just it. I just do it. I don't think about it, and I
This
mean,
is
I have these five here that are like, what are you gonna do to me? So I'm just until I know, I'm just doing stuff around the edges.
see this too. Like this is another of my doodles. I paint like this. That's the way I painted the cabinet, right? Like multicolored. A medicine bag is people who dance powwow. Quite often, many people have medicine bags. Is to keep the sacred medicines in if you need to do a smudge or if you just need it for um, emotional health kind of things. And it's usually done out of leather and it's a drawstring.
Okay, this one here, I've seen Teresa set of tiny stamps. So this was a heart stamp, and I just stamped it all over and then doodled in and filled it out.
I like that.
I have, and I was looking for them, and I don't know what book they're in. It may not be any of the ones I brought over here. I don't know.
That was fun, that heart page, Jean.
Yeah, so don't if you need a spot to start in, sometime. See, I
I
was
like
doing
that
those little
too.
squares before I knew it. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, when I first heard about Zentangles was when I did these ones. And I did a whole bunch of them actually. And so, I mean, I was playing with Zentangles years and years and years and years ago. And then I thought, that's just doodling.
Yeah.
Like, it's really nothing more than the way you've done doodles in the past. So, yeah. Isn't it amazing how we go through these phases? Like, I love your doodles, Jean. I absolutely love your doodles.
Thank
I've
you.
got some doodle pages in my art journal too, but they're not as elaborate as yours, I don't think. I used to take like poster board um, and draw lines on it and then doodle in between all the lines and shapes like this. I would take and do something like that.
Boy, that's
And
really
then
trippy.
it is. See that kind of shape, that blobby kind of shape? That's what I
Uh,
did all my amoebas in. I put faces in each of the knobs.
yeah.
I don't know where that went.
Well, dang it. I don't know. I had somewhere I stamped an image in the middle of the paper, like a head, a face, something like that, and then just doodled around it because if you stamp it in black and you doodle it, it just kind of fills in and looks like it was all part of it. But I have
Yeah,
no idea where I mean, I've seen it recently, and I thought, oh, I haven't done that for a long time, and I don't know where I saw them. These are the three books that I've had out recently, so and the only one is that I know was the heart. That's crazy.
yeah, exactly, Teresa. Doodles under a fancy name.
It's kind of like slow stitch.
Yeah, embroidery.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking I should do some of that too.
Now
There's so many things I want to do. I just need my hand to cooperate. It's still not up to par.
I did take one of my doodles that had I used tracing paper, or yeah, tracing paper, and I took it, instead of doing all the doodles, I did the basic shapes, and I started an embroidery with one of my doodles, and I really
Oh,
like it, but it's kind of like, I worked on it for a while, and then I'm not in the mood to do it anymore. So
yeah. Well, like I've got a stack of paintings. My daughter used to teach paint nights, right? So she would practice the paintings before she did the original or did the class. So I've got stacks of her paintings here that for some reason or other aren't, they never made it as the show off piece for paint night. So I would love to take those and embroider on it and doodle on it and bead on it and just turn it into a mixed media piece. Maybe I'll play with some of that next week, or
that
I'll
sounds
start it
cool.
on Sunday and see, and some of the pieces stitch down some fancy fabric, like just because they're already on stretched canvas.
Yeah. Well, this is something else you're talking about. It kind of ties in somewhat of what you're talking about. I got to find one that's finished. Okay, so this, it doesn't show up real good. No, that's really not a good one to show you. This one is finished. This poor baby, it's been so many things. It started off, I had a plan, and I didn't like it, so I kind of tried to wipe it out, water it out, didn't work. This is what bled through and what I added to it a little bit, and I really, really like it.
I like it.
But this is what I've been doing a lot of, and this is my new love, total new love. The watercolor, the doodles, and the stitching are my favorites of what I do.
Yeah,
And so this has that. This is like the blanket stitch, but done kind of stretched out. And
yeah,
then this is a little woven piece. This is just straight lines. I have a bunch of them started, ready, has the holes punched, ready to stitch on. Um, I go through and I punch all the holes on it, and then I stitch. So
yeah,
this has stitching here, stitching around the edge.
yeah. I
This is
like putting the holes in too before I stitch.
So, it's, you can see the stitching more here, so it gives you an idea of
Hmm.
what to look for. Because it does pretty much blend in. There are things like this one that's not quite finished, and I can tell because there's still holes punched. But yeah, I've got this, and then these are French knots.
Oh, I love
The
that
French knots
piece.
is one of my favorite, but doing them on paper, they're so easy, way easier than fabric.
Yeah,
I just, and I don't use embroidery floss, just embroidery floss. I use pearl cotton. I've found a heavyweight sewing thread works really good.
yeah,
This was, you know, it's the watercolor, the collage, the doodling, the stitching, it's like everything. And I have about a dozen of these done and about 2 dozen of them starting. I have a lot of little,
I roll.
all these little collages that have all their holes poked in them, ready to be stitched on.
Yeah. Oh, I love
And,
that.
now these two were just watercolors, but this one's collage, and the holes are all in them.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, this is something I can do in the car. So when we travel, I do take this with me
right, right.
because the holes are there.
Yeah,
I'd said earlier about one of my grid things. Um, didn't, it bled under the masking tape and I wasn't happy with it. So this is what I cut apart. And aren't these just the cutest little cards?
They are. Are they ATC size? Why can't you use those as
No,
ATC?
they're a little bit bigger than, or a little bit smaller than ATC.
Oh, okay. But those are cute.
I
Well,
know.
thank you, Raul. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Al.
See, the nice thing about watercolors is the difference in the technique compared to acrylics, right? Acrylics are much heavier. And I love the bright colors of the acrylics. I haven't been able to do that with watercolors because I'm using kids' markers, right? You're a bit better today? Oh, that's good. That's good. You're all caught up from your travels? Recouped, recouped.
Thank you, Jean, for your comment earlier, too. You see, I can get the bright colors with the watercolors because I almost paint them like
Straight out
acrylic.
of the tubes, right?
Well, I don't use a tube, I use a palette.
Okay.
I do, this is the one that I just made myself up with what I bought clearance. There's no rhyme or reason to it, and they're all tubes and I put them in here. I'm hoping they'll dry out and become a regular old palette. But most of
Mm-hmm.
what I use is here, and I have most of this was done with a small set of 12 that came from Prima,
Okay.
and I don't know, some color. I haven't found a purple yet that doesn't go on intense. And I do mix them and I play with them, and you know,
Yeah. See, I had the pucks, like the tempera pucks that kids use, right? That's what I've been using, and it's so
uh-huh,
chalky and it comes off, right?
yeah,
Excuse me. So if you're working on them, they smudge and they smear, and I'm not a fan. So I have been using liquid tempera, and I find that seems to be much better because I have the big containers because I used to paint windows at Christmas time and stuff. So I have a lot of like the liquid tempera, but I've only got a few colors.
yeah.
But still, I can still do. Um, I can do those swatches on pages and the doodle on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
purple is hard to mix.
my ATC swaps are going to be that um, the paint, the like the little orange ones I just shared, because that's what I want to do.
Nice, very
And
nice.
after I get started on them, I might make more for more swaps. It's
Yeah,
just sometimes it's really hard for me to get a good um, amount of time to work on something. Yeah, I could mount these, I suppose, and on a piece of paper, and you know, except this one's 4 inches. But you know, I don't know. When I cut them apart like this, the little white frame just like made them look like real art.
no, I love the way those turned out. I really do love the way those turned out.
And it's all on super cheap watercolor paper. I have some really good expensive watercolor paper, and I've been working with it a little bit. I've had it for a long time, and it's much watercoloring on it is way better because it's 100% cotton. And around
Yeah,
here, all I can get is what Hobby Lobby has. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I definitely like. I mean, the watercolor paper over the good stuff over the other, but like I
okay.
said,
See,
kind of heavy.
Now you want me to take this book and, or now I feel like I want to take this book and do a whole bunch of swatches and doodle on them the way you have. I do have a, oh, it's missing. Of course, there it is. I stamped, I use those stamps, those wooden stamps and stuff that Ron did, and I do those on book pages and then I doodle on them. So I don't need to have more stuff to doodle on right now. Yes, I do. I need more.
I love doodling in a book. Um,
Yeah.
while I was on vacation, the first part of my vacation, my granddaughter was there with us, and I got her started in doodling in a book. And then the second half, my grandniece was there, and um, she started doodling in a book, and she's so much like her Aunt Jeannie. It's so funny because she will look at something. It's just not enough. It needs something else.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All
Uh,
art deserves a frame no matter how good the art is. That's true. I mean, I used to frame my kids' art all the time. I had it set up so they had bulldog clips on the back so that I could hang their art on the wall. I did that with the grandkids too, so I could swap it out.
I have all kinds of art on my refrigerator from the kiddos.
Yeah, me too. Now they're older, but I mean, I used to have like a flat fridge. It didn't have the texture to it or anything, so I used to just let them color right on it with dry erase markers. Some of those don't come off as good as you think, but I always had kid art as high as they could reach. My fridge was decorated.
Well, I have a cinder block fence, and they get to draw all over that with sidewalk chalk.
Nice. That's nice.
And it is a rough texture, but they still love it.
Yeah,
There's something about coloring on a wall that just.
I know. When my kids were little, I had the walls all lined with rolled brown paper so that they could draw all over the walls. Because one of my kids was so bad, she it didn't matter how many times I got her to scrub it off, she would color on the walls all the time. So that was my defense. I just covered everything in brown paper and let them have free reign.
Well, my studio walls have pictures drawn on them. You can't see so much of them because I have so much stuff now. But everybody has signed them. My mom and dad's signatures on there. All of my kids, my grandkids. I have pictures of the two oldest grandkids writing their name on my wall because writing your name with a sharpie on a wall is a big deal.
It is.
And we had some furniture repair people come in to do our couch, and they signed it. And anybody who's ever been in my studio has written on the walls with sharpies.
That's cool.
And I don't know how well it's going to paint over when we ever have to sell it, but it's okay. That's what it is. It's my room. And he wouldn't paint the walls because it was the art room, and I said okay, and that's what we did.
Nice. Nice.
I figured my mom would be the first one who was like, no, you can't do that. But she was right there in line to write her name on there.
That's awesome. Nice, Joni. My dad would paint on the walls in the basement and then paint over it so that it was like a ghostly face behind the ruddy paint. And I was terrified to go in the basement for years because there were these ghosts down there.
I have been fighting the urge to paint my shed out in the backyard. I mean, it's nice. It looks good. It doesn't need it. It hasn't even been in 6 months. But I want to paint sunflowers all over one side.
Yeah, well, you guys have seen the picture of my not a garage door.
I haven't.
Oh, let me find if I've got one on here. I know I got one somewhere. I have this most wonderful husband that I came home from work one day and he had primed it white. He says, I've got something for you.
That's awesome.
It needs a recoat because some of the paint is starting to flake because I didn't use exterior paint. But it's funny because the neighbors will bring their grandkids over to look at the wall. And if I happen to be out and about or if I see them, I get the kids to tell me a story to go with the dragon sleeping on the mushroom, or the gnome reading to the other dragon, or the flamingo looking from the door. It's a very interactive. Thanks. As I say, I am so fortunate that I've got a husband that lets me do that. I mean, my dining room has butterflies, my bathroom has hot air balloons. I'm just very lucky that he just, yeah, go for it. Just paint. I kind of mentioned painting over my butterflies, and my eldest grandson had a little bit of a hissy fit on me. He's 17. He says, "You can't paint over that." And, you know, because they did learn how to count on those butterflies. So he was very upset when I mentioned painting over them. You know, the nice thing about that garage door is when we've got 2.5 feet of snow on the ground, it's color.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's color in the yard. It's not just white like everything else.
Now, see how you're doodling in your pages that you just scribbled on? I didn't even do that on my pages because I use it as collage material and it gives me that black and white pop.
Yeah,
There's probably not a piece of art I've ever done that doesn't have black and white in it
yeah,
because it makes the colors pop.
it does. It really does.
Now, see, um, this little accordion one was what was left over after I did that one.
Okay.
I suppose I could cut this up for ATCs. This is one of my favorite.
I love that one. I've
I
been
did.
admiring that one for a long time.
I got the idea for this in something off of Pinterest, probably.
Yeah.
And
Pinterest is good for that, isn't it?
yeah, and there's just so many different things you can do, and
I like your stack of bricks. Look, book stones on the blue. I'm
I like to
pointing.
do that a
You see
lot.
me pointing?
I
I
do,
can
I
do it
do.
this way. No, it doesn't go over on your screen.
And I actually thought when I put the tape on this, I was hitting the spots that where they would be on the seam, kind of the folds, and I was mistaken. But
Oh
it's okay.
no.
I still like it. And I thought, I needed to do the back, and so I tried. I'm not done with it. I jelly printed it, three
Okay.
different. This was so dark, and it was really trouble finding the right thing to put on there. So I'm not happy with that. This one I just outlined all the paint parts, and I'm happy with it like it is for now. And
Do you
then
have a
this
white? Do you
what?
have a white gel pen or white ink
Uh-huh.
you could doodle on that dark one with?
Yeah, I did some of these little swirls that I did. I put white dots on them,
Yeah.
and I could do I'm not in love with it, so I kind of put it up for a while. And then this one I'm just filling in circles.
Yeah.
I thought I'd leave all the painted stuff alone. So it wasn't exactly my choice after I did it, but I did it, so I'm going to make it work. And I may do more on this. I may come in and do all the white stuff
Yeah.
with with the tiny little doodles that I love to do.
Right.
That makes everybody crazy when it's just like no rhyme or reason,
Yeah.
just little shapes and fill it in. I know you can't see that
I
because
can
it's
see
time,
that.
but I just, you know, and every once in a while I'll put in a heart or something that's, what
You're
shape
fuzzy
it is.
again.
Oh,
Has this been happening to StreamYard lately, guys? Who else has been using StreamYard? There we go. There we go.
it just doesn't like white sometimes.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Never even thought about that, but these could so easily be cut into ATCs. Oh, oh yeah, easy, easy.
Well,
That
see, I'd taken gel prints because I had to get rid of a bunch of gel prints, and I cut all the backgrounds. So I've got stacks of backgrounds that I just have to embellish for them or
that's
doodle on, or I have lots of stuff I have to use up. Kind of had a remark from my daughter about that yesterday when she was here for supper about the amount of stuff again. And it's like, you know what? I'm happy in my little world. You don't live here anymore, so you know what you can do.
yep,
Don't get me wrong, I love my daughter, and a lot of times it's teasing, but it's got that edge to it, right?
yep, exactly. Yeah, we have I just with all my Defy stuff, I've been so working hard on getting it out in the garage
Right,
and in the shed and out of my house. Well, there is stuff in the spare bedroom, and that is what I consider the basics that I send out. And some of that stuff just needs to be in the house, not in the garage.
right.
And because I organized the garage so much and so well, there's a lot more that came out of the spare bedroom to go in there. And I took a picture of it and sent it to my daughter because when they first moved back from Virginia, they stayed there. And my son in law's comment was, I didn't know your mom had so much stuff. Anyway, I sent her a picture. I said, look, look. And she says, oh my gosh, you got a path around the bed now. And I said, no, I said, there's always been a path. And she says, well, you're right. Now it's a fat person path.
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh,
I,
gotta love kids. Not sure why, but we gotta love them.
yeah. And my grandson was really thrilled with, because that's where he stays when he comes, And he says, I won't have to put it's got a king size bed in it. I've really thought about getting, just a queen size bed, but we're all big people. And if
Yeah.
kids ever come over, they really need a king size bed. But anyway, he puts his suitcase on the other corner of the bed that he's not sleeping on. He says, now I can leave it on the floor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, our bedrooms in this house are pretty small. Like my kids' old rooms are pretty small. There's no way a queen size bed would fit in there. A double bed won't even fit in there. So it's got to be singles. Gotta be singles. Yeah. Well, I don't have too much more to elaborate on the doodles, and stuff. I do have lots more ideas. I love the way you've got that stuff sewn on. Um, you sent me that thing on Instagram for the ticky tacky. What was
Yeah,
that?
I don't
So
know.
I was,
It's a class or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
I never found the link for the class, but I was looking at her work and it just enthralls me that she would take like a little one like this and then just stitch right over it right on the page and not even bother gluing it down. It's just stitched down and whatever. And even though I don't have a sewing machine, I can definitely just hand stitch it onto something. So
hmm
got some lovely ideas from that. I appreciate you sharing that. And then those cards that you showed, it's really just leading me more and more to pull out one of those paintings and start revamping it.
yeah, that would be cool.
Could be definitely interesting, because there are some parts that she got bang on right away, and some parts she struggled with, right? Because she was
hmm
learning. So I've got two or three paintings of one picture, and there's something different about each of them. But even if it's a tree, I could do the leaves. Some could be just plain doodled leaves or paper doodle leaves. Some of them could be fabric. I just want to have fun, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I saw something on Instagram where a lady bought a painting at a thrift store, garage sale, something. Um, I don't remember the painting. It was a town, and there was a car, like a Model T kind of car, old in the front, and she turned it into a Halloween painting. She put ghosts driving the car, and then ghosts walking, pumpkins scattered, and next to a fence post in front of a building. It wasn't, it had some uh, thought process to it. They weren't just like scattered here willy nilly. They had places to be.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh man, that would be fun, is to go find a painting and turn it into something,
yeah,
still part of the painting, but still something else. So I think that would be fun.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Well, as I say, I'm ready to call it a day. My hand is done, and which means I have to go away from here because I'm going to keep playing, and I do have other things to do than play.
Yes, I understand.
So, thank you guys all for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope we tweaked some inspiration for different ways of doodling and elaborating on just play, right?
That's
Thank
right.
you, Jean, for coming and playing and teaching. And anybody who watches the replay, thank you as well. And I'm going to call it a day. Take care, everyone. Bye, Johnny. You
Bye.
have a
Thank
great
you for
weekend too.
coming.
Thanks. Bye, all.